People can make anything they want to of themselves. If you have belief in yourself and you have faith in yourself, you can achieve anything. That's what I firmly believe in, and that's what I'd like to leave your listeners with. As you have faith in yourself, then what can knock you? Tell me, nothing at all.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uppercase podcast. Uppercase is a digital content company. Look us up for blogs, newsletters, podcasts, social media, and more. In today's episode, you will hear cultural icon Sabira Merchant talking about how effective communication can improve the quality of your life. Long before the world went Wordle crazy, Sabira captured the attention of the whole country as host of What's the Good Word, Adi Marzban's word quiz show that had families huddle around those big black and white TV sets. She's also worked in theatre and trained beauty queens, including Lara Datta and Priyanka Chopra, and now she's out with a book that covers it all, including her early influences and life as a child bride and lucky charm. Thank you for joining us today, Sabira, and congratulations on the book. I've been recommending it to everyone. I couldn't put it down. It's an excellent read, I have to say.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
The best part is that it allows a reader to journey with you through the highs and lows of your life.
Well, I'm glad because I wrote it in that fashion. I wanted it to be highly readable and like conversational. It's almost like the person was with me, across me, and we were just speaking to each other.
That's exactly how it is. And I think what's played an important role is your candor. And one thing I wanted to ask you about is Alec Padamsi has also been equally candid in his foreword in the book. And he mentions your rehearsals in this abandoned building.
Well, that's such a far way back in my memory. But it was in the basement of the dental college. And everybody, all the audience was sitting on crates. We wanted to make people understand that it was a fallout shelter, a nuclear fallout shelter. And there's this girl from the outside world who just sees this aperture in the ground and walks down and gets the rope ladder and gets into with these people sitting in the shelter. So it was the audience sat on crates, so they felt part of the whole movement as if they were in the fallout shelter.
Yeah.
And I remember coming down that ladder. That ladder kept swinging back and forth. Yes. And here I was, all of 21.
Yeah.
And having 3 children already. You wouldn't believe that I had 3 children by the time I was 21, and then acting after that. I thought to myself, am I mad? I've got these 3 little ones at home, and I'm standing on this ladder, swinging back and forth. I would never fall any moment. I must be totally out of my mind, but I was so excited with this acting and so happy at just being in that movement as such that, I was carried away totally at that time.
But your wardrobe needed a little adjusting because of the client.
Yes, because we realized that everybody could see up my dress. So we decided to wear a very discreet pair of bloomers. Yes.
And your husband had something to do with that, was requesting that.
Yes. He thought it was a very good idea.
So one of the things also that Alec talks about is how you learn to converse. Right?
Yes.
And one of the things that you've practiced was reading the newspapers for the sake of conversation, right?
Yes, I would practice reading the newspapers. My first foray into television was watching the news on TV, because I knew how these newscasters, the BBC especially, until today, it's still part of my instructions, even to the Miss Indias or to any one of my students that I have at the moment, and there are quite a few. I tell them, watch the BBC News because their accent is so perfect, their delivery is so good, their enunciation is just perfect. So that's what I urge them to do. News and news and news, and just keep watching it. And of course, reading it to keep yourself well informed.
Well informed, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, but am I to understand then that the reason that you took this up was because you were a bit unsure of yourself?
The reason that I
started reading the newspaper so that you would have material for conversation?
No, it was just that it would prompt me into learning to speak better. because I had no one to teach me really
Right.
other than the news.
Right.
And my teacher at school, Mrs. Bradley, she was very good in English.
Right.
And she knew I was such an ardent lover of the language. I would write words down that I didn't understand, and I would take them to school with me the next day to show it to her. And she would show me how to use it within sentences, which is very important, because if you just research the word
Right.
for its meaning, it's fine, you've got the meaning, but then you use it within a sentence and
Right.
use it well. So I really had the advantage of having a wonderful teacher who excited me about the language.
Right.
And we were like one team. When after school, I would sit with her for 10, 15 minutes and ask her for her time.
So because you had this vocabulary and you were able to speak so eloquently, did that help you in social life? Did you feel
Yes,
that?
of
Did you feel
course.
confident always?
Yes, of course. That's the crux of it. If
That's
you
the trick
speak
to
well, that's the trick.
So when
If
people
you-
talking about social anxiety, is that a tip that you would offer
It's
them?
because they don't know what to say.
Yes,
First of all, they
absolutely.
don't know what to say,
Yeah.
and they don't know how to say it very well. Just a simple thing like biting your V's and rounding your W's, which I like these people to learn about. So, friends, you just remember that every V has to be bitten, like your front teeth go over your lip. Simple thing, and the W's have to be rounded like a kissed, the kissings. Why, where, when, things like that. So these things leave you well armed, makes you feel like you are powerful enough.
And having a
Definitely.
vocabulary makes such a difference, right? Because obviously you have the capacity to express yourself.
Yes. That is why also people say, you know, I mean, you see, they say these things because they don't know
The
the
words
next
to-
word that's coming from them.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
do.
therefore it's important to
Yeah.
have a good vocabulary, a sound vocabulary. I'm not saying a very, very powerful vocabulary, because it's important that we do not have that much time to spend reading
Right.
or listening to the news again,
Mm-hmm.
where you hear fine language being spoken.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about reading the newspapers, it's a little tricky these days to rely on the newspapers to be your material for conversations, simply because we live in very sensitive times, and topics like religion and politics. Would you say that these should be sort of off limits in social events?
No, I think you can speak about them. You can speak about religion. It's not something that you bring up, really. It's never anything that I brought up. But if somebody brings it up for me and speaks to me about it, then I shouldn't shy away from it. I'd say, I'd answer. I'd think, look, basically, religion is something that is within you, just like spiritualism.
And politics?
Politics is something I shy away from.
Yeah.
I really feel that the politics are in such a low abysmal position right now that
You know, I was going to ask you, because one of the classics that you've performed in is My Fair Lady, and Professor Higgins in that suggests stick to two subjects, the weather and your health.
yes, that's very wise advice, that you stick to the weather and your health, and you speak to people, things that are not controversial. So it's best not to go into areas of controversy.
But what do you do if
Somebody asks.
Yes.
Well, somebody asks, and either you say, well, I don't think this is the right place to discuss it now. Maybe we could meet over a cup of coffee and then discuss this.
Well,
But
that's
maybe
a
at
nice
a,
way to
yeah,
do it.
because at a party, when
Yeah.
people are around, if somebody asks you a very engaging
Yes.
question,
Controversial or
and
confrontational.
controversial question, and you don't really want to answer it,
Right.
then you just say that we'll meet another time. Why don't we meet over a cup of coffee at the club and then discuss this?
So how did you learn this? Because in your book, I don't want to give too much of your book away, Sabira, because it is an excellent read, like I said, and I want people to discover it on their own.
Thank you.
But just a couple of things that I did want to bring up is you had this conversation with Dalip Tahil, where you thought he was hitting on you, and really he was rehearsing a line.
Thank you.
That
Dalip,
one-
Dalip, are you listening?
And you had this encounter with Pratima Bedi where she thought,
Yes.
there was a romantic relationship between you and
See, there
Sabira.
is a lot of what you call sincerity in my tone.
Right.
And in my eyes when I speak, when I convince people that this is what I mean. So with Protima, of course, I looked into her eyes straight away. I said, Protima, dear girl, I have 3 children at home that I have to look after,
Yeah.
and a very, very happy, balanced marriage.
Yeah.
So why in the world would I want anything to do with your husband? So
Right.
please just get that in your mind and be rest assured that I'm acting with him only for the sake of acting, as you know, convincing as I might be on stage.
That's a real compliment, though, right?
That's
Obviously was
it.
very-
I don't really have anything to do with him after that.
Yeah.
I just have a cup of coffee with him, and that's the end of our meeting. Yes.
So, I love this tip that you offer, where you say that, you can ask people questions because people love to talk about
Oh,
themselves.
people
isn't it?
love to talk about themselves. You're quite right. The thing to do is to, do you know what the latest news is? No, tell me. No, you tell me, because remember I heard you say it the other day. Oh yes, you mean you were talking about the Ukraine thing. Yes, that's the terrible thing right now. They're talking about neutrality. We don't know about it. It's at such a state, and people are in such a way out there that it's so pathetic. It's so heartrending.
Right.
So you let them do the speaking rather than yourself do the speaking. You ask them a question and they'll be so happy to answer it.
Sure.
What happens? You walk into a room and you're just looking at each other. My name is so-and-so, hello, how do you do? And then there's this quiet after that, and there's quiet. So if you ask a question, somebody in the group is going to come forward and answer it, and that'll be perfect. It's just your conversation starter right there. So I tell them the way to break the silence is to ask a question. Ask whatever. Therefore, it is necessary to be well informed, so that if you're well informed, you can also break in and say something.
Right.
You can say about, oh yes, I'm watching the latest Turkish serial, which is so much fun. Have you watched it, by the way? No, tell me about it. Yes, so conversation starts.
Right.
Or you talk about fashion, or you talk about food is a big icebreaker.
Yeah.
Talk about a new restaurant that's come up.
Yeah, I guess that's a safe one.
It's a very safe one, and everybody loves to eat, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we all like to know what new restaurants we can hit upon.
And that's not intimidating as well, right? If
Not
you're
at
talking
all.
about current affairs, it may, some people may be less aware than others. But
yes, less aware. Maybe they feel that this is full of controversy, and we don't want to get into that.
But
We don't talk about religion and
But what about asking
that.
somebody what they do? Is that rude, or is that
To ask somebody?
just what they do for a living? What do you do?
No, that's fine. That's not
fine.
rude. No, that's fine. That's perfect.
And what about, are you single? Are you married? Are you dating someone? Do you have children?
Well, I don't really wander into that area too much about asking them,
Personal questions?
Yeah, because during the conversation it slips out that I'm dating, or I'm doing this, or my
I think
husband
that's
is
great
across
advice.
the room. Yes, that my husband is across the room. If it comes during the conversation, then fine, then you're okay. But otherwise, I think I don't ask them, are you single or are you married? Working on your vocabulary, of course, is very important.
Yeah,
and your etiquette.
diction as well.
And your diction. Your etiquette is very important. When somebody older walks into the room, you just automatically get up and give them your seat.
Yes.
Or you always, when you're going into the elevator, it's so nice when a man says, after you.
Right.
These are little things that work. Or may I get you something?
Yeah.
If somebody's without a drink in their hand or a cup of coffee, and there's a lot of it going around, I always ask them, would you like me to get you something? Oh, no, that's fine. And I'll just signal to the waiter to bring it something. Because a lot of people, in fact, are shy.
Yeah.
They don't go out and get themselves things.
Right.
Unless something is really brought to them.
Right.
So if you break the ice by asking them that,
But if you've heard the younger generation speak, brevity has always been the key word for, I think, anyone in the communications business. But now with WhatsApp and with social media, everything is an abbreviation.
Abbreviation, that's right.
And so then, is there still value in building your vocabulary?
Oh, yes, of course. There's a lot of value. Your vocabulary is how you, you ascertain yourself. Like you hear me speaking, and you hear me speaking well, with good words chosen. You'll say automatically. You'll tell me, this woman is well informed. She speaks well, and it creates an impression.
Yes. So the way you speak, for instance, is something. I mean, you teach communication and etiquette, which is, but you've picked it up through reading, by traveling, through your interactions with people that you were very fortunate to meet.
Yes, fortunately, nobody ever taught me that. I just taught it to myself, and I realized that this was something that was needed by most people at large.
Right.
And that's when I probably had my first workshop with this group, say about 35 years ago, 40 years ago. And they saw the need for that, not only for that, for speaking well, but they also saw the need for fine dining, which is another thing that I teach, as to how to approach the table, which fork and knife to take, what to do with your cutlery, your glassware, your serviette. What do you do with your napkin or your serviette? Where do you place it? How do you use it during a meal? And because I had actually had a workshop with this group of people. And by chance, I happened to go to a restaurant after I'd finished the workshop, and I saw the same group of people grabbing at, across the table and not behaving, some putting the napkins all over the place and stuff like that. So if they don't know, somebody should be there to instruct them and teach them. And so then I wrote to the company and I said to them, it'd be nice to have a workshop about fine dining. So they had a workshop. And it was wonderful. They learned so much. And of course, the next time they went out, they knew exactly how to approach the table.
What would you say has been one of your greatest influences?
One of my greatest influences probably would be my workshops. Because a lot of people have known me through my workshops and also through the program, What's the Good Word? Even that was the one thing. Like even now, whenever even I have my workshops, when I have my teenage workshop, which are very important, these teenage workshops.
Oh, I didn't know you did those. Okay.
Yes, and working with teenagers.
What age?
From say 13 to 18, 20.
Okay.
So these are the younger students come in, and all their parents had grown up watching me in What's the Good Word.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is why they send their children to me. And then the children learn at that young age how to speak, how to walk into a room. So that is very important. In fact, my youngest student today, you wouldn't believe, is 11 years old.
Wow.
And my oldest is 60.
Wow.
So
you're never too old to learn something new.
You're never too old. You're never too old. Absolutely correct.
And why not? But in these classes, do you have as many boys as you do girls?
More of girls. And girls at that age, at 13 and 14, are quite bold.
Yes?
Oh, yes, they're quite bold.
How do you mean?
I mean, they come across and they shake my hands automatically.
Oh, that's nice.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and how are you? And it's so nice to see you here. And, start a little conversation there, whether the boys are a little bit
shy.
Yeah, a little shy. Yeah, they need to be brought out more.
Yeah, well, then I suppose all the more reason to send them to your classes.
Yes, that's good.
So I wanted to also ask you about, as important as we're talking about conversational skills, as important is as what you say is how you say it, right? There's a lot of people in India. English is not our first language over here. As you say, we need to build our vocabulary so we don't have to rely on the sort of and the to fill the sentences. But for a lot of people, conversation is difficult. It does pose a challenge, especially in English, and they're more comfortable in their regional language, which is fine. Does that pose a problem in society, especially in Bombay society?
Well, you need to speak good English in Bombay society, or I think in any society.
Is that right?
The world over, you need to speak good English. You need to have a control over the language. If you're speaking your own language, fine, that's great. But that's fine in your native state, or that's fine back in your own country. But when you travel, and especially when circles in Bombay, the social circles, I mean, you know of them ever since years ago.
The reason I brought it up is, when I was at Mumbai Mirror, Bhaji Karkaria had Agony Aunt column that she ran.
Yes, I know her very well.
Yeah.
She's such a delightful person.
She is.
Look at her control over the language.
Wit. Yes, absolutely. So somebody had written in, and talked about how her husband was embarrassed to be seen with her, and so left her at home when he'd go out because he was embarrassed. She couldn't speak English properly. Maybe she lacked the social graces that. And we had a lot of people writing in about that because it was quite a sad situation. Do you feel that, just sort of, if you can't work on your vocabulary, having this right sort of etiquette or knowing how to conduct yourself, does that help at all?
Of course, it helps if you know how to
So if
portray yourself.
Yes. So
yes.
even if you're communicating in your regional language, but the fact that you can carry yourself.
Yes, perfect, yes. And dress according to that.
Yes.
The way you're comfortable with. Don't try and ape anything or anybody else just because Western clothes happen to be in vogue. You shouldn't try and do that. If you're perfectly comfortable in a Kanjivaram sari, wear that and look darn good.
Yeah.
And I'd like to speak about Bachi at this stage.
Sure.
She wrote a play for me.
Which one?
Yes, it was the Rummy Game.
Okay.
The Rummy Game, and we traveled everywhere with this. I brought the script back. It was called The Game. We brought the script back. No, it was called the Gin Game. It was called the Gin Game. And I brought it back from England. I gave Bachi the script and I said, do it in an Indian genre.
Yeah.
So she wrote it in an old age Parsi home.
Right, lovely.
And I played that with Hosi Vasunia, and it ran to packed houses. I did it with him. We went abroad. We traveled to London. We traveled to Germany. We traveled to the United States.
We
did this play, just the two-hander, the two people, and it was all written by Bachi.
Yeah.
She'd just taken the old script and converted it into it, and she did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And this
because she's not only an incredible wit, she's also got, such a deep understanding of human nature.
Oh, yes, of human nature she has.
Yeah,
and the language, her language is unbelievable.
Yeah, she's a master of the craft, so
absolutely.
You'd be surprised. Now you had this, the reason I was talking to you about that woman is you have these workshops. I know, scores of people reach out to you for these workshops. Is it largely women who want to fit into society? You said you also conduct classes for...
well, it's across the board, really. Across the board, I have all kinds of people. Like I told you, I have this 11-year-old girl.
But all mainly women or a large number of men?
No,
as well?
a lot of boys as well. Yeah, a lot of boys.
Professionals?
In fact, the 60-year-old student that I have, he's a doctor.
Right.
And he just wants to improve his speaking skills, which is so wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it's all ages and it's across the board.
Yeah.
They just want to improve themselves, be better speakers, be better presenters, dress well too. We discussed dressing as well. So that's included. Then your fine dining is included. So at the end of it, you are a more polished human being. Let's put it like that.
Right. And posture plays an important role.
Yes, posture too.
Because your posture is impeccable. I know I tend to slouch. But,
oh, well.
Is it tiring? Do you work out? What do you do?
No, I work out. I work out every day, in fact.
And you have a trainer?
I have a trainer that comes home and works out with me. And then I have a little short stand onto the treadmill as well.
Okay.
So
is that for an hour a day?
So the exercise is for about an hour and a half a day. So that's de rigueur.
And for how long?
For an hour and a half a day.
No, for how many years have you?
For about 35, 40 years, maybe.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's a long time.
No, but I guess
everything in my life goes back to so many years.
Yes, no, but it's great to exercise, I think, and it also sort of helps you. You do this in the beginning of the day?
It helps your mind too. It helps you unburden your mind. You just don't think about anything else at that moment. Just thinking about the exercise and kicking your leg up in the right position.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're occupied.
So you do this early in the morning?
No, I do it in the afternoon.
Really?
I'm not an early morning person at all.
Okay, so what?
In fact, I like to get up late. I just love that laziness.
But then you must be a night bird.
Not really a night bird. I go to sleep about 11:30 or something like that. Not too late.
So what is your routine like? I know when your husband passed away, that was something that you found cathartic.
Well, I have these workshops,
Yeah.
or I have single students that
Right.
sometimes come in.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of the students are aspirants for the Miss India or the Mrs. World
Right.
or whatever competition is going on at that moment. So they come in, I teach them how to deliver their little speeches and
Right.
stuff like that.
You're also a big art buff, right? You're a big art aficionado. Did you talk to them
Yes.
about art as well? Because that's so important.
Well, I speak to them sometimes about it, that it's important to look into the artists, you know, their names, and like Hussein
about their
or
style.
Sabawala, or they know them all.
Mhm.
And be aware. I teach them like to be aware all around.
Right.
To be an all-rounder, really, that's what's important in life. To be an all-rounder, to know about a little bit about everything,
But
not
then
just
isn't
at
a
one.
little knowledge a dangerous thing sometimes, Sabira? Because I know I met a gentleman once, and he could talk to me about pretty much anything for a minute. And it was literally like a timer. Post that, we had to move on to something else. So you could talk about Brazza for 1 minute, then talk about, the protests, for the Citizenship Amendment Bill for 1 minute, then move on about to something else, because that was pretty
But
much.
that's okay. You don't have to speak in depth about everything.
But if you're going to
cannot
bring
be
up a
knowledgeable.
conversation, and I might want to continue that, right? So is it maybe best to stick to subjects you know?
It's good to stick to subjects you know. It's better. I usually try and do that about what I'm teaching
Yeah.
or what's going on in life at that moment.
Right.
So it's good to stick to subjects you know, but it's also nice to foray into new territories. It's also good to do that. And you ask them, tell me, I don't know about this.
Right.
Would you be able to tell me some more?
Oh.
And they're very, very happy.
Yeah, again, you get back to that asking questions. Absolutely.
Yes, yes. You know, Dale Carnegie wrote this wonderful book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that you talk about things that they want to talk about and not things that you want to talk about. You'll find you've hit this with success every time.
Right. But that takes a lot of patience.
Patience, yes. Patience. Well, my name is Sabira, which comes from Sabar, which means patience. So I think I like to put that into play every time I enter a room. I think I'm just a very patient person.
So in your marriage, you had this incredible marriage. It's like the stuff of storybooks. But was it? I mean, how important a role did diplomacy play in forging that relation?
Diplomacy is the name of the game, really.
Yeah.
Yes, my father taught me that when I was a very young girl. He said, always speak about what the other person likes to hear. And when people don't like it this way, say, okay, why don't we try it this way?
Yeah.
And see if it doesn't work, then we'll definitely try it your way.
Right.
So that is something which has helped me throughout my life.
Yeah, I know you used this in your marriage. I read about that.
Yes.
In the corporate world, in professional life.
Yes, that also works there. You always give a person a chance first. Tell them the person your way sounds absolutely delightful, or that sounds absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But would you just like to try it this way first? And then if it doesn't work, then we go back to your way.
To your way.
And that always.
Have you always found people receptive?
Very receptive. Also, you have to have the powers of persuasion.
Right. And that, you said, is instinctive.
It's instinctive, yes.
Yeah. Can people do anything to work on that?
I'm sure, why not? I mean, anything in life can be worked upon.
You talked about earlier about the making eye contact. That helps.
Yes, eye contact is that's one of the things that I teach, the eye contact. And also, as you say, speaking about what the other person likes to hear.
And sincerity, I guess.
And with great deal of sincerity.
Yeah.
And look into them and say, yes, of course, I do believe that.
I grew up watching What's the Good Word like so many other people. And you've always carried yourself with such poise. You always come across so confident. Was it ever an act?
No, never.
Never you never tried the whole fake it till you make it. You never had to do that.
No, never did. That's always been very from the heart. Just like my acting, there's no faking in it. It's just from the heart. You just mean it. And if you mean it, you will definitely convince people. 100%. Oh, yes. Mean it and people will take it as you say it. No.
That's
not my style.
Perfect your communication skills.
Yes.
And once you're confident, be yourself and be out
yourself. Yeah, be
Yeah.
yourself is very, very important.
there. Okay, and before I leave you today, Sabira, I do want to talk about the fact that you've been a lucky charm for people,
Oh
right?
gosh, that
And a fertility charm.
yes.
So I think that that's amazing. But do you believe in luck? Are you superstitious at all?
Well, I'm not superstitious, but I do believe that luck does work. There are some people who are very lucky.
You've been very lucky.
I've been very lucky. I've been very,
Meet
as
your
I said,
husband.
in people's homes. I was sent when I was a little girl,
Yes.
and everybody had a male issue or an issue after
Yeah.
I visited them. So I think that was something which was discovered by my parents when I was just a little baby. And then it seemed to work later on in life too.
So people would invite you over and say,
yes, so just come and sit and maybe, So I don't know how it worked, but it did. I think I just thank God because I believe a lot in the Almighty, and I thank Him for that always.
Right. But so if you're not superstitious, you do believe in luck. How do you reconcile these two things?
Reconcile what?
The fact that you're not superstitious, but at the same time you do believe in
Well, I think it's
the
fine.
happy
The two can live
coincidences.
hand in hand, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
And do you feel people can make their own luck?
People can make anything they want to of themselves. If you have belief in yourself and you have faith in yourself, you can achieve anything. That's what I firmly believe in, and that's what I'd like to leave your listeners with. As you have faith in yourself, then what can knock you? Tell me, nothing at all.
Okay.
Have the confidence, have the faith, and say, I can and I will do it.
But is there an exercise that you recommend? Affirmations, perhaps, sort of look at yourself in the mirror and
Psych yourself, yes. You psych yourself. Say, I'm good at this and I'm going to be better at it. And I also have this, I tell my students this too. Look at the mirror and convince yourself. Say, I am going to do it. And that's it. Finished. Get that infusion of courage in you and you can go forward and do anything you feel like.
Thank you so much, Sabira. It's been a wonderful session. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
I think I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else has too. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again.